Hello everybody, my name is Kodak, and this is going to be the video commentary for the comic I wrote about the July Task 1 for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's a group on DeviantArt that has an extended storyline for people to use their own Pokemon characters to have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon styled adventures through their art. It's a lot of fun and a great way to practice your drawing or writing skills, so I'd say check it out. This comic is Team Homuranagi's first outing, so I kinda treated it like a pilot episode. It was fun to do, and it was one of those stories that just flowed and made it easy for me to get motivated and write it. I was originally going to try to make a 15-page comic, but before I knew it, it had ballooned out to 30 pages. But that's not too bad. I mean, 30 pages is the length of your standard comic. Now, I have never finished a 30-page comic in 4 days before, but I just felt that strongly about the story. It's got mystery, it's got action, it's got intrigue, and a heartfelt moment or two. Just a nice story. Doing a comic like this to show off how your characters act is a great way to introduce them to other people and help them understand materials you put out later. It's what a pilot episode is for, pretty much. The comic was based on the first mission of the July Tasks, where the construction of the Alamomola slums was being hampered by an unusual number of accidents. Now, in a funny coincidence, I had developed a construction-based Pokemon character, Buckeye the Tropius, the day before the tasks were posted, so I thought it would be fun to do a longer story featuring him in the cast. Except for Royce the Slowking, everyone else in here was made up by me. Now, before listening to the rest of this commentary, I'd say go and read the comic first. You can find the link to the first page below. Now, of course, the main characters are the rescue team, Team Homuranagi. Now, the name Homuranagi does have significance, but since the name was devised by Jack, who's suffering from amnesia, they don't really know what it is. They're basically lifted from my Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Darkness game. Due to how the story goes, I always imagined the protagonist being some sort of soldier, which served as a great deal of inspiration for Jack the Chikorita's character and background, which is currently secret. Jack has amnesia and literally fell out of the sky in front of Arden one day. He has a unique serrated leaf and carries himself in a soldierly way. Arden the Torchic is based on the supporting character from the same game, a younger, more innocent character who is less experienced with exploration. Really, until now she was used by a construction company as a portable space heater. However, Arden is better versed with social dialogue, so she's the face while Jack is the muscle. Not really a brains and brawn thing, as both of them are about the same level of intelligence. Okay, so starting off we have the setup, where we see the construction site. Through this setup, we learn that Jack knows cut and willingly follows orders, and that Buckeye is in good enough standing that the others recognize his expertise. The inciting incident occurs when another accident strikes. A rope lifting a timber is split and nearly crushes a girl timber if not for Jack's quick actions. Buckeye also discovers that the rope breaking was an act of sabotage. Now this is important because how the characters act is far more important than their backstory. Did any of you even get in this comic that Jack has amnesia? No! Because it's not important in this story. However, by seeing Jack risk himself to save the timber from getting crushed, he shows that his heart is in the right place despite his gruff exterior. Arden also shows that, while she is a bit of a coward and a loudmouth, she is also fairly clever and acts as the comic foil for the serious Jack. The next few pages are about the cast exonerating themselves, removing suspicion from any of them and making it so that none of them have the combined motive, opportunity, and means at the time of the accident. After a while, though, I kinda realized that it was turning into a bunch of grown-ups talking. I mean, isn't this a comic about a rescue team? Thus, I had Arden step in and take control of the situation. Soon enough, we're in the slums and meeting our antagonist, Lefty the Duat, whose arrogance got the better of him. Lefty actually went through a lot of development. He was originally going to be a Sneasel who was using Razor Wind to cause the accidents. This didn't happen because Sneasel can't learn Razor Wind. I piddled around Bulbapedia for a bit and found that Duat can learn Air Slash as an egg move. This ended up solving so many problems because Air Slash isn't a move that all Duats know. It allows Lefty to have an attack that was super effective against both Jack and Arden, and it gave me an opening to end the fight without lethal damage being required. Lefty's name came from the fact that I noticed that I was having him launch all of his attacks with his left hand. So he became Lefty, the left-handed Duat. Lefty's creation brings me to another important tip. Writing a villain is freaking easy. To write a good villain, all you have to do is create someone we want to see taken down. It doesn't matter how much we sympathize with the heroes as long as the villain is worse. To do this, we need to have the villain do something horrible, something that triggers a visceral response that makes us not like them. And we have to see it happen. Then we just need to make them a viable threat, check, and teach as little about them as we can. The less we know about someone, the less likely we are to sympathize. Sure, we learn more about Lefty later, but right now that doesn't matter. Lots of villains use this sort of build of just being unlikable people who commit a terrible act who we know nearly nothing else about. Take Moff Tarkin, the villain of Star Wars A New Hope. All most people remember about him is how he casually blew up a planet and how he got that one last shot of his face before the Death Star exploded so that we were sure that he was on it. Nobody cried over Tarkin's fate because he deserved it. That's how easy it is to do. Alright, and now we have the action, the big fight with Lefty. One thing I tend to hammer on about cartoons is when they have bad fight choreography. Now, the fight is a little wacky, but everything works in the context of Pokemon. Based on how Dig works in the video games, it's not too big a stretch that Arden just so happened to surface underneath Lefty's foot. What I was kind of worried was the big stretch, though, would be Jack's chainsaw technique. I was worried that this would cause the comic to jump the shark due to how ridiculous a concept it is. Although, admittedly, it's not too far a stretch. I mean, what do you use cut for? Cutting down trees. What's a chainsaw used for? Jack, in case you haven't guessed by now, is also inspired by the Jack from Mad World. Now, Jack has a chainsaw built into his robotic arm, and in the game you would sometimes have this sort of chainsaw clash where you clash against an opponent in this kind of struggle that's kind of a better example of how a quick time event should work. It served as the inspiration for Jack's signature move, which is designed to generate sword-on-chainsaw action scenes rather than be really powerful. I'd say High Cut's power would probably be 90 at the most. Yeah, it matches Sacred Sword. There's a reason for that. If the Three Musketeers ever come back as enemies, it will be so epic. Thanks to Lefty being a duot, he could be defeated without really hurting him. Yeah, not a single attack really lands unless you count Arden's dig. I kinda designed this comic to be more G-rated, and it works just fine with these circumstances. But now it's time to reveal Lefty's true motives, now that we're done fighting him. Turns out his motives are more than just keeping his own home from being demolished. He's the self-appointed protector of a bunch of baby Pokemon. No, he's actually a nice guy. At this point, the comic was getting a bit long-winded, so I decided to start winding it down, adding a twist where Lefty's actions may have almost doomed the Pokemon he was protecting, causing him to reflect on what he's done. The adults end up taking pity on Lefty. They offer to help him rebuild, but also make sure he gets due punishment for his crimes. And I finished with a little epilogue, sort of in the style of the old TV show. Everything is settled and all of the loose ends are tied up, including the one with the Timber who Jack rescued at the start. Everything wraps up fine in a very Pokemon-ish way, assuming you read the conclusion in the style of Pokemon Season 1 narrator. Overall, it made a good introduction to the characters and a nice, compassionate story with all the good bits. There actually wasn't that much action, but there was just enough mystery and intrigue to keep the story rolling through all 30 pages. So that's basically all I have to say on the comic, and it was really a blast to do. I really enjoyed it, and I plan on doing some more in the future, although I don't know if as many of them will be as good or as quickly produced as this one. Well, I guess if you guys are also looking for some more ways to help improve your art from this commentary, aside from what I mentioned here, I could throw in a few. Of course, there's the standard draw a bunch suggestion. If you draw your characters a bunch, you'll find that you start taking little shortcuts and discover ways to simplify their designs that make them easier to draw. The number of notches in Jack's leaf, for example, dropped a whole bunch the more I drew him. Still, just drawing lots doesn't really cut it, because, I mean, if you keep making the same mistakes over and over, you won't really stop doing that until you learn their mistakes. So reading tutorials and watching live streams are a huge help. Also, don't be afraid to exaggerate. Exaggerated expressions, exaggerated movement, exaggerated cuteness. Exaggeration is one of the bread and butter ingredients to making a cartoon more than just a simple illustration. If you find that your artwork looks really stiff, try pushing things beyond where you think they should be, both literally and figuratively, and you just might find that what you end up with is where you were going for in the first place. Exaggerated expressions make them easier to understand, and exaggerated movements make things more dynamic and exciting. Cartoons like Ren and Stimpy, Zatch Bell, and even Gurren Lagann all use exaggeration to great effect. My personal favorite book on cartooning, How to Draw Manga Compiling Characters, is unfortunately really hard to find, but it's a great resource that delves into the basics of drawing cartoons, as well as good storytelling, exaggeration, and character development. Even with all the outdated details they had about using ink pens and screen tone, I still feel I learned way more from compiling characters than I ever did from Draw Comics the Marvel way, which so many people swear by. I mean, that's a good book for properly drawing generic human characters and action scenes, but it doesn't cover storytelling or character development like compiling characters does. Well, so that's the commentary I have for the comic. I hope you enjoyed the comic, and I hope you enjoyed this commentary. See you around!